Hey guys, it's me Simo Orohara, and in this video we're gonna talk about Zaraki's Bankai and its real name, but this time with new vision. The fourth core, guys, is going to be full of major battles. We'll witness the release of several Bankai that fans have long been waiting for to see, like Orohara's Bankai or Zaraki's Bankai. And honestly, speaking about Zaraki, I personally never expected that we would actually got to see Zaraki's Bankai in the final arc. I always had the impression that maybe the story would end without Zaraki ever releasing his Bankai, and that the farthest thing we can see is his Zanpakuto's name, which would mean activating his Shikai. And the reason I believe this is because obtaining Bankai usually takes many years. Byakuya explained this when he talked about Bankai the first time, how it's not something everyone can achieve. It's not just about power. It's also about forming a proper and strong bond with the Zanpakuto that begins with learning its name, then building a spiritual connection within the inner world of the Shinigami to strengthen communication, which allows the Shinigami to perform their first release Shikai. And this might seem easy at first glance, but we shouldn't forget that it requires a certain level of mental and spiritual discipline from the Shinigami side. Then comes the Bankai stage. The main requirement for achieving Bankai is to subjugate the Zanpakuto outside the inner world. And this is similar to what Yachiru did with the fake Zangetsu, the old man. And we also saw it with Renji. Once he reached a certain level of connection with his Zanpakuto, he was able to manifest it outside the inner world and train with it. Considering all of these guys and Zaraki's condition at the time, it was hard to imagine that he could even reach Bankai. As Irichi once said, Zaraki was the only captain in the GOTY 13 who had become a captain without even achieving the Bankai stage. In fact, in his previous state, he didn't even know the name of his Zanpakuto. That means he didn't even understand the basics of how to connect with his sword. And this is true, guys, and makes sense, given how Zaraki got to his Zanpakuto and became a captain in the first place. He was just a wandering soul in society who found the Zanpakuto of a dead officer, took it, and started swinging it every time he found a worthy opponent. He didn't attend the academy, nor did he learn any sword techniques. All these factors gave birth to a massive, sealed spiritual pressure and a Zanpakuto spirit that struggled hard to connect with its wielder. What was happening with Zaraki was the opposite of what happens with other Shinigamis. While most Shinigami are the ones trying to connect with their Zanpakuto, in Zaraki's case, it was the other way around. From the very first manifestation, Nuzarashi had been trying to call out Zaraki, screaming with all her might, but Zaraki simply couldn't hear her. And I believe, guys, that over the years, as Zaraki keeps suppressing his power, this only deepened the rift between him and his Zanpakuto. Proof of that is when Yachiru first appeared before him, he didn't even recognize her as a part of his Zanpakuto, when in reality, she was his Bankai. And this is where we can say that the process of acquiring Bankai wasn't initiated by Zaraki, it was initiated by the Zanpakuto itself. So how is that? As we said before, guys, Shinigami usually try to bring their Zanpakuto spirits into the real world and subjugate them, but in Zaraki's case, it was the opposite. His Zanpakuto, represented by little Yachiru, manifested on its own, and she was the one who tried to connect with him. And so the way Yachiru appeared was actually a method of learning Bankai, but done entirely from Yachiru's side alone. And Zaraki, because of his sealed power, wasn't even capable of communicating with his Zanpakuto or learning its name in the first place. But we can say also, guys, that one of the reasons Zaraki couldn't recognize his Zanpakuto was due to the way he thought about it. He always saw it as just a sword, nothing more than a tool meant to bring him joy through battle. However, guys, the arrival of Ichiro Kurosaki in society and his fight with Zaraki changed Zaraki's perspective on Zanpakuto. It made him realize that a Zanpakuto isn't just a weapon, it's a partner. But as we have seen, guys, Zaraki's attempt back then to connect with his Zanpakuto ended in failure. The real change happened when Unohana's true identity was revealed. that she was the first Kenpachi and had a deep past with Zaraki when he was a child, and that she was actually the main reason behind the stealing of his power. So after Zaraki's brutal training with Unohana Yachiru, who sacrificed herself to draw out all of Zaraki's power, he was finally able to connect with his Zanpakuto, whose name is Nozarashi. Of course, there is some ambiguity about who Zaraki actually met in Mugen. Was it Yachiru herself, or was it the true form of his Zanpakuto, a grown woman, as Kobe described? Either way, what happened there was a crucial step in Zaraki's path to achieving Bankai, because technically guys, Zaraki set foot on the path to learning Bankai before he even attained his Shikai. And as we said, that happened when Yachiru willingly appeared at his side. And the mistake Zaraki that he did without knowing it was giving his Bankai a name, Yachiru. And by doing so, he turned her into a Shinigami. That is why guys, I think the real name of Yachiru is Nozarashi. Yes, there is a strong possibility that Zaraki's Bankai is also named Nozarashi, just like his Shikai. And this is due to two key reasons. The first one is when Zaraki finally said the name Nozarashi, Yachiru disappeared. She lost her Shinigami form and returned to her true form as the Bankai, making her no longer visible to anyone. The second point, moments before that, it was mentioned in the novel that she said goodbye to Isani, telling her she was leaving because Zaraki has finally called me. And from her words, we understand that Zaraki had finally called her by her real name, Nozarashi. And actually guys, when we look at other Kenpachi related cases, it's not surprising at all that even his Bankai, Zaraki's Bankai, could share the same name as his Shikai. For example, the 7th Kenpachi's Shikai and Bankai have the exact same name in kanji. The 8th Kenpachi's Shikai also shares the same name as his Bankai, Uruzakuru. Only Unohana had the name Minazuki for both her Shikai and Bankai, but with different kanji. So it's highly likely that Zaraki's Bankai carries the same name, Nozarashi, either with the same kanji or slightly different. That's why what happened in the final chapters of the manga when Yachiru appeared can be seen as the second encounter between Yachiru as a Zanpakuto and Zaraki. Because in their first encounter, Zaraki didn't recognize her. She tried to hint to him, pointing with her finger, that she belonged to his Zanpakuto and that she came from it. But at that time, guys, Zaraki didn't know that she came from his Zanpakuto. So he simply named her Yachiru, erasing any chance of realizing who she truly was. But in those latest scenes, he called her by her true name, and that allowed her to connect with him in her true form, as the Bankai, and unleash her full power at that level. However guys, he himself didn't actually activate Bankai, it was the Zanpakuto that released the Bankai, not him. That's why guys, we can say that Zaraki's Bankai's release is reversed. It is actually the Zanpakuto that triggers the Bankai, not Zaraki himself. But this might come at a cost, because as we know, when a Shinigami releases his Bankai or any of his techniques, if he calls a name, the power is fully unleashed. And so I wonder, how powerful Zaraki would be if he were the one to activate Bankai himself. In the end guys, I really hope we get more additions and reveals about Zaraki's Bankai, especially a proper appearance of the real Nozarashi, the adult woman. So guys, what do you think about the name of Zaraki? Do you think that he has the same name as his Shikai or other name? Tell me guys about that in the comments, and see you in my next video.